To understand what's happening in Iraq right now, you really need to go back to 632 AD. That's when the two main Muslim groups, the Sunnis and Shia, had a pretty big falling out after the Prophet Muhammad died. Shias believed only a blood relative could succeed him, but Sunnis thought their spiritual leader could be any devout follower of Muhammad. The modern struggle is about religion, politics, and boundaries. The vast majority of the world's 1.6 billion Muslims are Sunni. In countries like Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Shia Muslims are actually a tiny minority overall. In Iran and Iraq, Shias are in charge. But in Iraq, that wasn't always the case. There was Sunni rule under Saddam Hussein because he was on that team. When the U.S. invaded Iraq and toppled Saddam in 2003, who could forget this image, right? Sunnis were out of power, kicked out of the police force, and pretty much brushed aside by the new Shia government. The minority Sunnis were not happy. Some of them even joined forces with al-Qaeda as it began to infiltrate Iraq and wreak havoc all over the place. This was the insurgency U.S. forces tried to keep at bay for 8 years. But this al-Qaeda-Sunni mashup became too violent and extreme for the country's more moderate Sunnis. So they got friendly with U.S. troops to fight them. That became known as the Anbar Awakening. Across the border in Syria, ISIL, which they're now called because they want to establish a caliphate or Islamic State that extends far beyond Iraq and Syria, regrouped, trained, and amassed some serious arms and equipment. This group has been linked to massacres, executions, beheadings, and kidnappings, even of women and children. Their tactics so brutal, al-Qaeda's core leadership didn't want anything to do with them. Since the U.S. withdrew military forces from Iraq in 2011, Iraq's Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki has made life even more difficult for Sunnis in his country. That's why they don't seem too upset about ISIL's increasing power, and in some cases are even joining them. ISIL wants to create a Sunni Muslim state governed by Sharia law. Right now, their goal is regional, but experts believe they may soon begin exporting terrorism around the globe. Thousands of foreign fighters, including some Americans, are fighting alongside them. The group has taken over more than 20 cities so far, added $430 million to their war chest after robbing a bank in Mosul, and they've even attacked the country's largest oil refinery. And those Iraqi security forces the U.S. spent $20 billion training, well, many of them have refused to fight. Oh, and did I mention there's one more group you should know about? The Kurds are a fairly steady ethnic faction in northern Iraq, which is saying something considering the instability in the country right now. The Kurds want their own independent state, but the U.S. is urging them to stick with Iraq. Basically, it's a mess and a big problem for the U.S. and the entire region. How it will all play out remains to be seen, but because you know at least some of the players and dynamics, you'll be able to say, now I get it.